Hello, you're watching Nightline and I'm Nakia Bashrudin. The top stories. Stay at home. Cancel your balik kampung plans, says Prime Minister. And Health DG warns of tsunami like a third wave of COVID-19. We'll begin with our headlining story. In his plea to the nation to stay put during the movement control order, Prime Minister Tan Sri Muhyiddin Yassin explained that the shutdown was enforced to break the chain of COVID-19 infections. In a special address at 8 p.m. on Wednesday, Tan Sri Muhyiddin explained the reason to the closure of schools, universities, non-essential offices, business premises and factories.
Tujuannya ialah supaya saudara-saudari tidak perlu bergerak ke sana sini. Saudara-saudari tak perlu bersesak-sesak dalam LRT, MRT ataupun bas untuk ke tempat kerja. Tidak perlu bersesak di kantin ataupun di kedai makan di waktu rehat tengah hari. Anak-anak kita tidak perlu pergi ke sekolah. Tidak perlu mengikuti aktiviti-aktiviti sukan dan lain-lain yang boleh mendedahkan mereka kepada jangkitan virus COVID-19 ini. Selama tempoh 2 minggu ini, saudara-saudari dan anak-anak hanya perlu berada di rumah. Just stay at home.
He explained that it would be easier to isolate those with the COVID-19 virus, which has an incubation period of 14 days if everyone adheres to the restriction order and stays at home. Tan Sri Muhyiddin also said that all wedding receptions and kanduris should be postponed until a later date. While it was a norm for wedding receptions to be held during the school holidays, he reminded Malaysians that public gatherings such as weddings should not be held under the movement control order.
Jika dalam tempoh ini kita belum berjaya sepenuhnya, maka kerajaan mungkin terpaksa melanjutkan tempoh perintah kawal ini. Mungkin untuk 2 minggu lagi ataupun lebih panjang daripada itu. Dan oleh itu adalah penting bagi kita semua untuk mengasingkan diri dan juga keluarga kita daripada terdedah kepada virus COVID-19 dengan berada di rumah.
117 more new COVID-19 cases were reported on Wednesday, bringing the total cases reported locally now to 790 cases. Health Minister Datuk Sri Dr. Adam Baba said 80 of the 117 new cases were linked to the cluster of the Tabligh program held at the Sri Petaling Mosque recently. Datuk Sri Dr. Adham said the number of patients in the intensive care unit ICU has also increased to 15 cases. In a breakdown by states, Selangor still recorded the highest number of cases with 192 in the state, followed by the federal territories of Kuala Lumpur and Putrajaya with 119 and Sabah with 103 cases. Datuk Sri Dr. Adham said 11 COVID-19 patients who had fully recovered on Wednesday were allowed to return home from the hospital, which brings the total number of recovered cases to 60. Meanwhile, in line with the movement control order, which took effect from Wednesday until March 31st, Datuk Sri Dr. Adham said no visitors would be allowed to enter hospital wards during the period unless required or in emergency cases. He added that throughout the enforcement period, only one person is allowed to accompany a patient during clinical appointments, except for pediatric patients or patients that require special assistance or in emergency cases. And in a bid to avert a third wave of COVID-19 from happening, Health DG Datuk Sri Dr. Nur Hisham Abdullah also urged the people to distance themselves from others and to stay at home to curb the spread of the virus. The appeal came earlier on Wednesday, the day the country imposed the movement control order starting in order to contain the spread of the virus.
Saya merayu kepada semua rakyat Malaysia, sila ambil perintah kawalan pergerakan ini secara serius. Bantulah Kementerian Kesihatan Malaysia dengan memainkan peranan anda kerana setiap individu bertanggungjawab untuk mengambil segala langkah-langkah pencegahan demi keselamatan diri dan keluarga anda.
He also noted that the country has a slim opportunity of cutting the network of COVID-19 infection under the move and urged the people to help the Health Ministry by playing their own specific roles towards breaking the transmission of the COVID-19 chain.
Kegagalan bukan pilihan di sini. Jika tidak, kita mungkin menghadapi gelombang ketiga virus ini yang akan seterusnya menjadi lebih besar seperti tsunami. Lebih-lebih lagi, jika kita mempunyai sikap tidak kisah.
Datuk Seri Dr. Nur Hisham then appealed to all Malaysians to take the movement control order seriously by staying home and not going out.
Dengan kata-kata mudah, sila duduk di rumah dan jarakkan diri anda daripada orang lain sekurang-kurangnya 1 meter. Tempoh inkubasi COVID-19 adalah selama 14 hari. Kita mempunyai peluang yang tipis untuk memutuskan rangkaian jangkitan COVID-19.
Individuals who violate the prevention and control of infectious diseases regulations shall be liable to a maximum fine of 1,000 ringgit or jail for up to 6 months or both. This is in accordance with a federal gazette issued by the Attorney General's Chambers AGC on Wednesday, barring people from travelling to another place declared as an infected area. According to the Gazette, exceptions are made for those in the previously announced exception list. The Gazette also states that no gatherings shall take place within any infected local area, whether for religious, sports, recreational, social or cultural purposes. However, a gathering for the purpose of a funeral ceremony is allowed, provided the number of attendees are kept to the minimum. It is also stated in the Gazette that individuals must comply with the request of an authorized officer for any information relating to the prevention and control of infectious diseases regulations. According to the Gazette, any person who contravenes any provision of the regulations commits an offence. Essential companies approved by the government to operate during the movement control order can do so, but with several strict conditions set. Among those industries are those in the food processing, fisheries, and those handling fruits and vegetables. Also included in the list were medical device manufacturers, cleanser and sanitizer companies, and toilet paper and tissue product factories. There were several restrictions imposed on the companies, such as reducing their workforce by 50% and allowing some to work from home in non-critical areas during the movement control order. Workers are also to undergo health screenings at the entrance, where their temperatures will be taken and recorded. Companies will also have to provide hand sanitizers and face masks for their workers at the workplace. Another condition set was that if any employee should be infected with COVID-19, then the company should be responsible for the cost of treatment and sanitizing the premises. These conditions were set after the Ministry of Trade and Industry met with several manufacturing and commerce bodies. Police and Malaysian Volunteers Corps Rela personnel will be enforcing the movement control order to ensure that people stay home and only essential services operate. The National Security Council has also expanded the list of essential services that are allowed to operate. Hotels and homestays are now allowed to operate with minimal service. However, guests are to stay in their rooms and only allowed to order room service. They are also not allowed to accept new guests. All their other facilities, like swimming pools and gyms, are to be closed. Mechanics and towing services are also allowed to operate. Some essential construction work has also been allowed with the approval from the Works Department and Department of Occupational Safety and Health DOSH. Shops in shopping malls that operate essential services, such as telecommunications and pharmacies, are allowed to stay open. Restaurants, meanwhile, can only open for takeaway and delivery services without dine dine-in. Online e-commerce and their warehouses have also been added to the list of services that can now operate. However, self-service laundry service shops are not allowed to open to prevent people from gathering there. Those who do not abide by the directives under the movement control order can be fined not more than 1,000 ringgit or jailed for not more than 6 months or both. Meanwhile, in a short statement, Federation of Malaysian Manufacturers Tan Sri Soh Tian Lai said FMM appreciates the move by the NSC to allow critical essential goods to continue operating so that there is enough supply to fulfill the requirements of the people. Tan Sri Soh said industries that wish to operate during the movement control order must apply for permission through the Ministry of International Trade and Industry's website and comply with the terms and conditions set by the government. The SME Association of Malaysia said the decision by the government will allow small businesses to have access to essential items, packaging, printing and machine maintenance services.
I think this is what we urge all the SMEs, all the peoples in the country should, work closely with the government. We should focus on short-term pain, long-term gain. Within just only 2 weeks. From 18 until 31st, everyone would hand on hand to overcome this crisis, this kind of difficulties, so even include our members are willing to help to come in to produce more food, more products with necessity items to the people, to help the peoples, to overcome this. Then I think after this, if we can clear out all the disease, I think then we can go back to as usual and normal life, normal business.
The Yang di-Pertuan Agong Al-Sultan Abdullah Riayatuddin Al-Mustafa Billah Shah on Wednesday visited the Health Ministry's National Crisis Preparedness and Response Centre CPRC in Putrajaya. The King was accompanied by the Raja Permaisuri Agong Tunku Hajah Azizah Aminah Maimunah Iskandaria. Health Minister Datuk Sri Dr. Adam Baba and his deputies, Datuk Dr. Nur Azmi Ghazali and Datuk Airan Ago Dagang were also present. The royal couple was at the centre for about half an hour, where they were briefed on the COVID-19 situation in the country by the Health Ministry's Disease Control Director, Dr. Nur Hayati Rusli. The King had discussed with the Prime Minister during the pre-cabinet session on the status of medical supplies and was informed that allocation for the purpose will be provided. Al-Sultan Abdullah also expresses his appreciation and gratitude to all the staff at the Health Ministry and the relevant government agencies, especially those on the front lines, who are highly spirited and working tirelessly. The movement control order does not prevent Malaysians abroad from returning home. Foreign Minister Datuk Sri Hisham Tun Hussein made this clarification after more than 270 Malaysians were said to have been barred by Indian authorities from catching their flights from India back to Malaysia. In a statement, he said, under the movement control order, Malaysians are allowed to return to the country, adding that those seeking to return home would have to undergo a health check and voluntary self-quarantine for 14 days upon their return. A ministry official confirmed that as of 9 a.m. Wednesday, a total of 274 Malaysians were stranded in India. Those seeking assistance can call the Malaysian High Commission in New Delhi. Meanwhile, Datuk Sri Hisham said the Malaysian High Commission in Sri Lanka confirmed that a group of Malaysians who were stranded in Maldives owing to an earlier cancellation of flight were on their way back to the country via a different flight. Coming up after this breather, 40 investigation papers opened over COVID-19 fake news. Do stay with us. Welcome back. The Yang di-Pertuan Agong Al-Sultan Abdullah Riayatuddin Al-Mustafa Billah Shah granted an audience on Wednesday to Prime Minister Tan Sri Muhyiddin Yassin for a pre-cabinet meeting at Istana Melawati in Putrajaya. Controller of the Royal Household of Istana Negara, Dato' Ahmad Fadil Shamsuddin, said it was the first pre-cabinet meeting for the King with Tan Sri Muhyiddin since the latter took office as the country's 8th Prime Minister on March 1st. The meeting, which began at 8 a.m., lasted about 45 minutes. In a statement, Dato' Ahmad Fadil said both leaders appeared friendly and were meticulous during the first meeting that took place Wednesday. The pre-cabinet meeting is among the King's weekly activities or routines, during which he would discuss current issues and exchange views with the Prime Minister. Consumer groups, including the Federation of Malaysian Consumer Associations, FOMCA, warned that panic buying could result in shortages. The national body's member, the Consumers Association of Subang and Shah Alam Selangor, CASA, said that most supermarkets and major grocery outlets were frequented by panic buyers.
Let us not start hoarding. If you start hoarding, then automatically you also create a situation where we will have issues with surplus, or we will have issues of a lack of essential products. So let us be mindful. And to the businesses everywhere, our advice to the businesses is please control the sales. There are items that should be controlled, and you should also control the sales so that each household or each consumer is only allowed a certain number of certain items. We should all work together as Malaysians. We are always good as Malaysians working together, and this is another challenge to us.
Actually, I'm also going to buy something now just because of this. But then I think no need to panic now. All my boss say also no need to panic, Azli. Just buy something that important, right?
The Prime Minister already said the shop won't be closed. So even if you buy a lot yesterday, you still can buy it today, tomorrow, and the next week. Yeah, it's still the same. So it's not necessary.
I think you just buy whatever you need, but not so many. Like your house already can open a grocery store like that. Just buy what you need, and then let others got a chance to enjoy the same thing as you. Yeah.
A total of 40 investigation papers have been opened in connection with the spread of fake news via social media on the COVID-19 pandemic. Bukit Aman CID Director Datuk Huzir Muhammad said spreading such fake news was a very serious offence, as it could cause distress to the public. In a statement on Wednesday, he said the cases are classified under the Penal Code for statements meant to cause public fear and trepidation, and also the Communication and Multimedia Act 1988, which is improper use of network facilities. 11 have been prosecuted under the Penal Code, while 3 were deemed to warrant no further action, with 26 still under investigation. Datuk Huzir warned that police will not hesitate to take action against anyone who sensationalizes this issue. We're going for a short break. When we return, just one new COVID-19 case at Ground Zero, Wuhan. We'll be right back. Foreign news. The Chinese city of Wuhan, the original epicenter of the novel coronavirus outbreak, has reported just one new confirmed case for the second day in a row. China's National Health Commission said it recorded only one new case of confirmed infection in Hubei province on both Monday and Tuesday. Each was reported in the city of Wuhan, where the very first cases of the novel coronavirus emerged back in December. Overall, the Chinese mainland has reported 80,894 confirmed COVID-19 cases and 3,237 deaths, with a vast majority in Wuhan and the surrounding Hubei province. While China still compromises the bulk of the world's cases, that proportion is shrinking by the day as the epidemic appears to slow down in China and expand abroad, particularly in Europe. With more than 31,500 confirmed cases, Italy has the second highest national behind China. Elsewhere in Indonesia, locals are adopting the social distancing approach in its effort to contain the spread of COVID-19. This after the republic's death toll from the virus reached 19 people. Officials said a total of 55 new cases were reported Wednesday, bringing the tally to 227. The number of people infected by COVID-19 in Spain has soared past 13,700, with the number of deaths rising to almost 600. Madrid remains the worst hit area, accounting for 5,637 cases, or 41% of the total infections in Spain, while the number of deaths there rose to 390 deaths, around two-thirds of the national total. South Korea has reported 93 new coronavirus cases on Wednesday, bringing its total infections to 8,413. The daily tally is slightly up from 84 recorded on Tuesday, but marked the fourth day in a row that the country has reported fewer than 100 new infections. Australian Prime Minister Scott Morrison on Wednesday declared a human biosecurity emergency and said the country's citizens should abandon all overseas travel because of the coronavirus pandemic. The formal declaration gives the government the power to close off cities or regions, impose curfews, and order people to quarantine if deemed necessary to contain the spread of the virus. The upgrade in official advice to an unprecedented Level 4 do not travel to any country in the world was accompanied by a ban on any non-essential indoor gatherings of more than 100 people. Cameroon said it will close land, air and sea borders indefinitely from Wednesday to stop the spread of COVID-19. Cameroon has just 10 confirmed cases of coronavirus, but an already overstretched healthcare system would be under severe strain if the country had to treat the number of cases recorded in some European countries. Jordanians queued to buy bread ahead of a state of nationwide emergency set to be implemented on Wednesday in an effort to combat the coronavirus. The royal decree gives Prime Minister Omar Razaz extraordinary powers under a defense law enacted in times of war and disasters to enforce curfews, close businesses, and place restrictions on the movement of people. And before we wrap up this edition of Nightline, let's take a look at what has been installed on the front pages of Malaysia's main newspapers on Thursday, March 19th. All three main newspapers, the New Straits Times, Harian Metro and Berita Harian, highlights the call for all Malaysians to stay at home during the movement control order. And the Malaysian Reserve talks to analysts on major reshuffles at state-backed funds in line with the political changes in the country. Do get your copies today. And before we wrap up Nightline this time around, let's take a look as American Steel Lafferty, who is well known for breaking new ground in the wakeboarding world, attempts huge jumps at stunning Siete Tazas rock pools in Chile. With that, I'm Nakia Bashiruddin. Thank you for watching and stay home.